Chapter 22 of the trick which a knight put upon Don Gaylor, and how he revenged himself, and what happened to Amadis in the castle where was the fair child Briolania. 15 days Gaylor abode in the monastery before his wounds were healed, and then he departed, and rode where chance guided him. About midday he came to a fountain in a valley, and by the fountain was an armed knight, having no horse, no other beast. Marvelling thereat, Gaylor said to him, Sir Knight, how came you thus afoot? The knight answered, In riding towards my castle, I fell in with fellows who slew my horse, so that I must walk home, though sorely tired, for my people know not my case. Not so, replied Gaylor, you shall have my squire's beast. I thank you, sir, quoth the knight, but, before we depart hence, you should know that the virtue of this fountain, which is such that no poison, however strong, hath any force against the water. Beasts that have been poisoned immediately recover by drinking here, and all the people of the district come hither and find relief for their infirmities. In sooth, you tell me wonder, said Gaylor, and I will alight and taste it. The knight replied, Good reason you should, being nearer than which you ought to be to seek from afar. Gaylor dismounted, and bade his squire alight and drink as he did, and he placed his arms against a tree. Go and drink, said the knight, and I will hold your horse. And while they were drinking, he put on Gaylor's helmet, took his lance, and mounted, and rode away, saying, Farewell, sir knight, you must stay here till you trick another, as I have tricked you. Ah, knave, quoth Gaylor, thou shalt repent this. You must provide yourself with horse and arms first, said the traitor. Gone is the knight so fast as he could gallop, and Gaylor in great wrath followed the same track upon the squire's palfrey. At length he came to a double way, and knowing not which to take, stood in perplexity. Presently there came up a damsel, riding more than a pace, of whom he demanded if she had seen a knight on a bay horse, bearing a white shield with a vermilion flower. And what would you with him? I would recover my horse and arms, which he has stolen. And he told her that what had happened. How, said she, would you recover them, being disarmed? Only let me find him, quoth Gaylor. Well, grant me a boon, and I will bring you to him. So she rode on, and Gaylor after her. But the damsel was foremost, for the Gaylor's palfrey could not keep up with her, carrying both him and his squire, and they rode 3 leagues without seeing her. And then they met her returning, for the false knight was her paramour, and she had been advising him about how he might spoil Gaylor of his armor. So she led Gaylor to a tent where the knight was ready to kill him without danger. Gaylor alighted. The knight stood at the entrance of the tent and exclaimed, Give me now the rest of your armor, or I will slay thee. Certes, quoth the Gaylor, I cannot fear such a knave as thou art. And avoiding his blow, he smote him so manfully upon the head as made him put a knee to the earth, then gripped his helmet and plucked it off, and the knight cried aloud to his leman for help. She, hastily drawing nigh, called to Gaylor to hold, for that was the boon which she required. But she spoke too late, for Gaylor in his anger had already made him into a state that need no surgeon. Wretched that I am, said she, in beguiling another I've deceived myself. An ill death kill thee, knight. I will claim thy boon so that thou shalt die for it. And if thou shalt refuse to grant it, I will everywhere proclaim thee and shame thee. Damsel, said Gaylor, you spoke too late, else I would have spared him, though he well deserved death. Then mounting, he rode on. After some time he looked and saw that she was following him. Whither go you? Said he. In your company, which I will not leave till I have found opportunity to demand my boon, and make thee die an evil death. Lady, you had better choose some other atonement. Nothing but thy life for his. So they rode on for 3 days, the damsel perpetually reviling him, and then they entered the forest of Angaduza. After Amadis had taken leave of Urganda's damsels about noon, he left the forest, and came out upon the plain, wherein was a goodly castle, and in the plain there was a chariot, the richest he ever saw, drawn by 12 palfreys, and covered with crimson satin, so he could see nothing within. The chariot was guarded by 8 knights on each side. As Amadis approached to see what what it might be, one of the knights bade him keep off. I have no ill intent, said Amadis. Be that as it may, quoth the knight, you shall not approach. You are not such that you ought to see what goes there, and if you persist, you must do battle with us. Each singly would be enough, how much more all together? Then he of Gaul took his arms, and sped so well that there soon remained only one enemy to deal with. His helmet he smote off, and then Amadis saw under it the face of an old man, the grey hairs. He drew back. Sir Knight, quoth he, you should now leave this pursuit, for if you not had before won honour, your age excuses you now. Nay, friend, replied the old knight, the young must fight to obtain renown, and the old to preserve what they have won. Your words, Sir Knight, are wiser than mine, said Amadis, and he advanced to the chariot and lifted up the hangings. Within it he saw a marble monument having the figure of a crowned king thereon in royal robes, but the crown was cleft to the head, and the head was down to the neck. There also was a dame sitting on the couch, and by her a young maiden of most excellent beauty. I pray ye tell me, madam, said he, what figure is this? She, seeing that he was not of her company, replied, Who gave thee permission to look here? None other than my desire thus to do. And my knights, what did they do? More harm to me than good, said Amadis. Then the lady in years lifted the curtain, and saw her knights. Some lay dead, some endeavoured to catch their horses, and she was greatly moved, and said to Amadis, Cursed be the hour in which thou, who hast done such devilries, wert born. Lady, he replied, your knights attacked me. I beseech you tell me the meaning of this. As God shall help me, you shall never learn from me whom you have so injured. And when Amadis beheld how wroth she was, he departed and went his way. The knights of the lady then placed their dead comrades in the chariot and went towards the castle with great shame. Amadis, meantime, rode on, and when he had gone about a league, he saw the old knight riding after him, who called him to stop. The lady whom you saw, said he, sends to you and requests you will lodge in her castle tonight, that she may make amends for her discourtesy. Gentle sir, quoth Amadis, she was so moved that meseems my presence should cause her more wrath than pleasure. Believe me, answered the knight, she will rejoice in your return. Amadis, seeing the knight was of an age that should not lie, and won by his manner, turned back with him. On the way he asked the meaning of the figure, but the knight would not resolve him. And when they drew near the castle, the old man rode on to inform the lady of her guest. Amadis slowly followed to the gate, over which there was a tower, and he saw the lady and the young damsel at one tower of the windows. And the lady said to him, Enter, Sir Knight, for we greatly rejoice at your coming. He answered, Lady, I rejoice to obey rather than to displease you, and entered the castle. Presently there was a great stir within, and many knights and armed men came out and beset him, crying, Yield, or thou art dead. Sirs, quoth he, I will not willingly enter the prison of such a false ones. And with that he laced his helmet, but a shield he could not take because of the press that there was upon him. They struck at him on all sides. He nevertheless worthily defended himself so long as his horse could stand, felling at his feet all whom he could reach with a fair blow. But his horse being slain, and he himself sorely pressed, he made towards a shed which was in the court, and there by the wall defended himself to better advantage. Gandalin and the dwarf were taken in his sight, which the more inflamed him. But his enemies were so many, and laid on such heavy load, that sometimes he was upon his knees, and he saw no way of escaping death, and they would show him no mercy, because he had slain and grievously wounded so many. But God and his own worth succoured him in this peril. The young damsel beheld the battle, and seeing his brave behaviour, she was moved to pity, and calling to one of her women, she said, I'd rather have all my people were slain than the good knight should perish to follow me. Lady, said the woman, what would you do? Let my lions loose upon his enemies, she said, and I command you, being my vassal, to release them, for you can do it because they know you. Upon this the woman loosed the chain of the lions, who were 2 in number and very fierce. And then she cried out, Save yourself, for the lions have broken loose. They who were besetting Amadis forthwith fled, yet not so lightly but that many of them were torn to pieces by the beasts. But Amadis immediately made for the gate as well as he could, going out closed it behind him, and fastened the lions in the court. Then he seated himself upon a stone, sore wearied as one who had fought heartily, and still holding in his hands his sword, which was broken. The lions, meantime, having scoured the court, ran here and there, and would fain have escaped through the grate. The people of the castle dared not descend to them, nor she who had let them loose, for they were too fierce to be controlled. In this distress, not knowing how to help themselves, they agreed that their mistress should ask Amadis to open the gate, which perhaps he might do at the lady's request. For loath was she to ask him, considering how little she had deserved such favor at his hands. Yet knowing it was her last refuge, she looked from the window and said, "Sir Knight, however hardly we have dealt with you, let your courtesy exceed our demerit. Open the gate that the lions may go out and we may be safe. We will make what amends we can for the past, and on my faith I assure you my intent was only to hold you as my prisoner till you would have consent to be my knight." Amadis mildly answered, that should have been gained in another guise, I will willingly have become your knight to do you service, as I am the knight of all dames and damsels who need it. And will not you open the gate? No, as God shall help me, you shall not receive courtesy from me. With that she went from the window lamenting, and the fair young maidens said to him, "Sir Knight, there are those here who had no part in the wrong which has been done you, and who deserve some favor at your hands." Then Amadis, greatly admiring her, answered, "Fair friends, do you wish me to open the gates?" "I should thank you earnestly," said she, and seeing Amadis rise to do it, she stopped him, saying, "Stay a moment while I make the lady secure your safety." So he marveled at her discretion. The lady then warranted him that he should be safe from her people, and promised to release to him Gandalin and the dwarf. And the old knight bade him take a mace and shield to kill the lions as they came out. "Give me the arm," said Amadis, "but God forsake me if I do harm to those who have aided me so well." "Certes, Sir Knight," quoth the old man, "you will not fail in your faith to man, since you keep it so to the beasts." Then they threw him the mace and shield, and Amadis took them and sheathed the little of his sword that was left, and opened the gates, being ready with the mace in his own defense. Immediately the lions ran by him into the open country. He entered the court, and presently the lady and her people came to receive him, and they brought him Gandalin and the dwarf. "I have lost my horse here," said Amadis. "If it please you, lady, give me another, else I must depart on foot." "That," quoth she, "were a shame for a knight like you. But remain here this night, and on the morrow we will provide you a horse." Then they disarmed him and brought him a costly mantle and led him to the apartment where the lady and the young damsel expected him. And their seeing him so young and beautiful, being so brave a knight, were greatly amazed. He on his part no less wondered at the damsel, how fair she was. But addressing the lady, he said, "If it please you, tell me what the figure meant which I saw in the chariot." She replied, "Promise me to do what you ought have after having heard it, and I will tell you. Otherwise I pray you hold me excused." "If there were no reason, madam," quoth Amadis, "to promise lightly, I know not what, if it be to do what befits a knight, I shall not fail you." "You say well, sir," said she, and then dismissing all her attendants, she began. "Sir Knight, the figure of stone is made in remembrance of the father of this fair maiden, who lies in the monument which you saw in the chariot. He was a crowned king, and being upon his throne on a festival day, his brother came up, and drawing a sword from under his cloak, smote him on the head and cleft it, as you saw in the statue. This was a concerted treason. He had brought with him many adherents, and seizing the kingdom which he still holds. This child, the only one of the murdered king, was then under the care of that old knight whom you have seen, who fled with her to me, being her aunt. I procured my brother's body and entombed it as you have seen it, and every day it is laid in the chariot and carried forth. And I have sworn that none should see the monument but those who attain the sight by arms, not having seen it, learn the meaning without promising to take vengeance for so wicked a treason. Now, if you, being a noble knight, bound to prosecute virtue, and on so just occasion, you will employ the forces God hath lent ye in this right cause, and I will continue this course, being sure of you, till I have found 2 champions more to fight with the traitor and his 2 sons, for they will not undertake the battle, except they be together. Let them come one by one, said Amadis. I will singly cope with them. That, quoth she, they will never consent to. But do you return here at year's end, and I will have other 2 champions ready. I will not fail, answered Amadis, and do you not trouble yourself in that search, for I will bring those with me who shall well maintain your right. This he said, trusting that time to meet his brother Galer and Argives. They, heartily thanking him, bade him be sure they were good knights, for that wicked king and his sons were some of the strongest knights in the world. If I find one of those whom I look for, said he, I shall not care for a third, however strong they may be. Tell us, gentle sir, of what country are you, and where may we find you? I am of the house of Luzart, Queen Brisenda's knight. Now then, let us go eat, said she, with the better appetite after this agreement. Then they went into the spacious hall, where such cheer and honour was being made him as might be desired till the hour of rest came. The good night being given on all sides, he was conducted to his chamber by the damsel, who had loosed the lions. Sir knight, said she, there is one in this castle who helped you when you knew it not. When was it I sent the lions loose to save you by my young lady's order, for she pitied you. If she lived, she will be without peer for wisdom as well as beauty. Of a truth, quoth Amadis, I believe so, but tell her I truly thank her, and bid her think me her knight. She will gladly hear me say so, said the damsel, and with that she departed, leaving Amadis in bed. All this Gandalin and the dwarf heard, who lay in another bed at his feet, and the dwarf, who knew not of the loves of Amadis and Oriana, thought that he loved the young maiden, and had therefore called himself her knight, and sorely did Amadis suffer afterwards for this error. In the morning, after mass, Amadis asked the names of those whom he was to do battle. The father, said the lady, is called Abisos, the sons Darasion and Dramis, all 3 of great prowess. And where do they reign? In Sobradicia, which borders upon Cerolasis. On the other side is bounded by the sea. He then armed himself and mounted, and was about to take his leave, when the young damsel came to him, bringing a rich sword which had been her father's. Sir knight, said she, use this sword while it may last, for my sake, and God prosper you therewith. Amadis received it with a smile. Hold me, lady, for your knight. Certes, lady, quoth the dwarf, you gain not a little in gaining such a knight.